Hello, this is Gavin Palmer with Hero Looking for Group. And the question is, who is your favorite hero? And I know that some people's response may be Jesus. And I would say Jesus did some things that I didn't agree with. For example, he went into the church and started throwing tables and got angry when people were trying to make money in the church. And I disagree with that sentiment. I think Jesus made a mistake. And in general, I don't think it's good to act with anger. So anger is something that everyone, well, I can't say everyone, but it's something that I think we are all familiar with. And the question would be, when you act with anger, is that something do you actually do things that you're proud of? And in my experience, when I act with anger, I make mistakes. And so I use my experience to learn. And so my thinking and my view is that I should not act while angry. I should avoid acting while angry. That's my default position. When thinking about this video, I looked up the Buddha. And so, in Buddhism, they talk about different stages of development. And at some point, you reach a stage where you cannot be made angry. There's nothing that can make you angry. And I think I like that goal. I like the goal of being able to get into a state where you no longer become angry. And perhaps that's just that anger comes into your existence, but you, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, you would treat it very delicately, and you don't allow it to, you don't become one with the anger, something like that. There was one person, Rami, who he likes the Hulk and Matilda. And I would say, first of all, these aren't real heroes. These are fictional heroes. And, I would encourage you to try to find heroes in real life. And specifically, and the reason I'm talking about anger is because Rami was talking about the Hulk. And the Hulk, basically, I remember one thing the Hulk says is his secret is that he is always angry. And, the Hulk is very destructive. The Hulk that destroys a lot of property. This is not a good thing. So the Hulk is not on my list. I also mentioned that Dr. Manhattan isn't on my list. Dr. Manhattan, he killed Rorschach, and Rorschach. And I don't agree with the idea that the means justify the ends. I'm not a consequentialist because I know I am fallible. I am so if I was not fallible and I had the perfect omniscient awareness, then I could be a consequentialist and do that. But I know I'm fallible, so I prefer to have principles. And so, this issue with anger is part of my principles. But one person I want to mention in high regard is Miyamoto Musashi. I read his book, The Book of Five Rings, a long time ago, and I recommend it. In that book, the things that stick out, even years later, is that in order to get better with his sword, he also studied calligraphy. So he would paint these symbols that have a lot of information. Something I think about the language is that the spoken word has less information than the written word. So for example, a character can be modified very slightly, like this character can be modified very slightly in order to change the meaning of the word, to give it nuance. So you can begin to get like higher resolution and more specificity with the words you're using whenever you are able to use these kinds of languages and in the written form. So I think that's so. So the idea there is. Miyamoto Musashi one of his highest goals was to become one with the spirit of the thing itself, and specifically the spirit of the sword or the weapon. And I don't necessarily agree with the spirit that he attempted to connect with. Like I think I actually prefer something like the Holy Spirit, but he was very good at connecting with this spirit and he became like the best swordsman in the land. I think he was able to win many fights without losing, undefeated. I think he was capable of going and fighting hundreds of people all at once, especially if they weren't experts, with his sword. He would use the land, his situational awareness. He would maintain, his presence, and he trained and practiced. And there was one story as related to anger, is that he had one of his battles he won. There was a scheduled meeting on an island for the fight on the beach, is my understanding, and he took a oar for a rowboat, and he carved it into a good weapon, and it was really long, and that was him preparing for the battle, because he knew that this opponent had like superior reach, and he decided to not use his sword, but he used this long oar as his weapon, and he prepared his weapon, he prepared himself, and he planned for the battle. And what he did is he showed up late, which was disrespectful. It was a disgrace. And there's a lot of warriors and tacticians, strategists who use this kind of thing of ignoring culture in order to get under the skin of their opponent. And when he showed up, his opponent was in such an irrational state of mind and was angry that when they started fighting, Miyamoto Musashi essentially, my understanding is he did something like a sidestep and one attack right onto the opponent's head and killed him. So a note on killing his opponents, he did in later life regret having killed his opponents, and I think he eventually, as he matured, he stopped killing people. He just would win without killing people. In his younger age, he would kill people. Right before he died, he had these precepts. And I don't agree with all these, except I do agree with some of them. I like number one, accept everything just the way it is. So there's a lot with that. The suffering, the struggles, the things that come, it's a teacher. It's the way I look at it. It's meant for you. It's meant to be, and it can be your ally, whatever it is. This is a good one. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. This is the immediate gratification kind of attitude. I'm not a fan of hedonism. I don't recommend it. I'm not sure what this means. Do not, under any circumstances, depend on a partial feeling. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. I like this. This resonates with the Holy Spirit way of thinking. Don't ignore yourself, though, for sure. But when you think lightly of yourself, you can do things like, I think this is like a way to de-bias. Like if you think highly of yourself, then you will have more bias. You'll be more likely to hold on and grip tightly to concepts and ideas about who you are. And then that way it may be more difficult for you to learn and change. So this number 4 is really good for your ability to learn and to overcome your own bias. Be detached from desire your whole life long. This is kind of Buddhist. Attachment is not good. Anger is something that comes up out of being attached. Fear, jealousy. There's a lot of emotions that emerge because of attachments and expectations. This is what Miyamoto Musashi used against his opponent with that oar. Do not regret what you have done. You did it. It's who you were when you did it. You can learn from it, but you couldn't have done it any other way. But the next time it comes along, you could do it different. You can't change the past. Never be jealous. I think it's pretty good. That's part of having the attachments, right? Part of number 5. If you're jealous, then you're having a desire. Never let yourself be saddened by a separation. This one can be tough as we develop relationships over periods of space and time. There is a bond that can form, and once that bond is separated, once it's severed, that's whenever the normal person will experience emotions as a result of that separation. And that's directly back to being attached. And so I think this happens naturally, that you become attached. And, in this kind of mental development along like a Buddhist path, you can reach stages where you are no longer attached, right, in any way. No jealousy, no sadness, no anger. Let's go to number 9. Resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself or others. So I've adopted a policy recently of if you ask for my feedback, I'll give it to you. I do not enjoy giving feedback unsolicited. I'm not a fan of complaining and holding resentment as a little bit separate. Resentment would be, for me, it has something to do with the idea of forgiveness and living in the moment, such that each individual is able to become something new at every moment. If you hold on to resentment, you are not providing that opportunity for the emergent change which is possible. Number 10, do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. So this is one where I would agree, don't be guided by lust. I don't know if Miyamoto Musashi kind of combines lust and love, because love is just, we're using this kind of low resolution language. We don't know what love is. But I do think, from what I'm aware of, Miyamoto Musashi avoided love as well. Like, he did not become attached to other humans. He didn't want a spouse. He didn't want children. This would get in his way of serving, the highest thing, which had something to do with his weapons and being some kind of a weapon master, samurai. And so this, I think, is connected to people who are in religions where the religions say, hey, you shouldn't get married. In order to serve, and devote yourself completely, I can understand this point, but I actually am attached to my, my wife and my children, and so I'm already on this path, and I because of that, I am serving. I'm in service to them. I am not in service to the weapon like Miyamoto Musashi is. My hope is that I can be in service of the Holy Spirit, and through the Holy Spirit, be in service to my family as well. So I don't think I'm at a loss here. It's just I serve something a little different than what Miyamoto Musashi served. I have a different aim. Number 11, in all things have no preferences. It's you've already heard me say some things that I prefer, but I think this is related to bias. So if you can practice this in order to overcome your biases that are preventing you from advancing. Number 12, be indifferent to where you live. This is a good advice in general. Like, if you are, if you're trying to advance toward a goal, sometimes the place that you're at is not the best place for you to be. Be willing to relocate. This is related to Miyamoto Musashi being able to take on 500 warriors at once. Like, he does not need to be attached to the place he's at on that battlefield, right? He needs to be able to move around at every moment, to be in the moment, to be like water, as Bruce Lee would say. Bruce Lee is also someone that I maybe could have talked about here as far as heroes. Do not pursue the taste of good food. This is really good advice. I see all these cooking channels and people interested in cooking and recipes. It's like, it's not my thing. It's not important to me. And whenever people emphasize good food, it just feels like a waste of time. But I don't like being rude. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. I don't want to be dishonest here. I do like good food. But if you put food in front of me that I don't like, I will eat it. But what's funny is my wife knows whenever I don't like the food I'm eating, because I eat it differently. But I don't want to give you the wrong impression. Number 14, do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. This has something to do with Jordan Peterson's Clean Your Room. I think that I could do better at this. I see no. The question here is, how do you get rid of your possessions? What's the best way to do it? It would be nice if it was, if the possessions you no longer need were made available to the people who actually need them. That would be great. Like this has something to do with the, I would say the efficiency and waste in general within the system, which is like our world. So if we got good at doing this, not holding on to possessions and making them available to the people who need them, I think we would end world hunger. It's a very important one. Number 15, do not act following customary beliefs. Yeah, the Miyamoto Musashi, and I agree with this. Don't be a follower, be a thinker. Use the beliefs to your advantage. Think about them, be willing to drop them too, don't get attached to them. But yeah, he was able to beat that guy on the beach because there was a customary belief that you need to show up on time. But, ultimately the goal for Miyamoto Musashi was to win that battle. And I mentioned there are other warriors who think this way. I remember Napoleon would use this to his advantage, using guerrilla warfare tactics. And Genghis Khan, he did things, yeah, his soldiers would have many horses, and they could swap horses and travel over land at rates that other people just couldn't do, because they would actually they wouldn't need to stop and do rest like everyone else. Like, customary beliefs and traditions just aren't good. I'm reminded of this recent kind of story that everybody likes to tell about about all the monkeys in a cage that are sprayed with water every time they try to get the banana, and they slowly start exchanging. The monkeys have been trained to get sprayed. So all these monkeys learn not to go for the banana. They start exchanging a monkey for one that wasn't, that's never had that experience, and the other monkeys will basically attack the one that tries to get the banana. And you can keep replacing the monkeys who had experience being sprayed with a new monkey until eventually all the monkeys are enforcing this rule that they don't even understand. Now, I've heard that story isn't real and that experiment isn't real, but I think it points to a truth that's related to this, and it's related to Miyamoto Musashi winning his battle on the beach and Napoleon winning a lot of battles with guerrilla warfare. It is real. Do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. This is an interesting one. I have some bows on my wall, and I would need to get rid of them if I were to follow this one. But this is related to do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. Do not fear death. This is a good one. I think a lot of problems in the world is related to people fearing death, where they respond with fear. Like, I think everyone, like, it seems like most people are motivated by fear, and this is a huge problem in the world. We are humans. Our nature seems to be risk averse. And this is something that as you develop mentally and mature, and stop being attached to possessions, and stop being, and I should say, having possessions possess you, or being attached to ideas and culture and beliefs and your expectations, everything. As you learn to become detached, you can eventually overcome this fear of death that is just natural. So it's interesting. A lot of these are just along the path. You figure out that some of the things that come by nature, you can learn to appreciate them, but overcome them. They're good for the immature human, but as you mature, you should be progressing and gain a better understanding. Number 18, do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs for your old age. This sounds something like the things you save up on earth will not be there for you in heaven. But I think this is a good one. I think a lot of people make this mistake. It's I agree with it. Respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help. This is I think this is good. I would say, let me say, without counting on their help. Maybe I disagree a little bit. It seems like the Holy Spirit, as you have a relationship with it, it will, yeah. Yeah, this Dakota has something to do with being alone, the path of aloneness, and the Holy Spirit is not about the path of aloneness. So the Holy Spirit is about hero looking for group. You're actually wanting to work and cooperate with other people. And this includes working with the Holy Spirit such that the Holy Spirit By each individual working with the Holy Spirit, they become part of a whole body that are able to cooperate and coordinate together. And so this is not that the gods or God or the Spirit is actually helping you. What it is that they are working through you, and potentially with the help of others, depending on the Spirit. Right? So Miyamoto Musashi's spirit was something to do with individualism and aloneness, which I have rejected. And so there are different spirits, and I would say I'm kind of aiming at a better spirit than Miyamoto Musashi's, but he did learn things that are good. Number 20, you may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor. It's pretty good. This especially works if you are alone and an individual and you aren't connected to a wife and children. But when you are part of a group, you don't really want to abandon your body, but there's definitely trade-offs there. I would say try to create effective policies so that you can preserve your honor. So I'm trying to do a policy of transparency when dealing with strangers on the internet, for example. And if you are my family or my employer, I will do things that maybe aren't transparent because you want me to keep your secrets. But for strangers on the internet, I don't really want to be in a position where I'm trying to keep your secrets. So that's the way I can preserve my honor, is because of a policy which allows me to filter out the people who would cause me to put my honor at risk. And this is just a risk aversion and a policy for allowing myself to preserve my honor. Put yourself in a position, where you are safe. So you can, and that's what I try to do. I try not to go into the dangerous areas. That way I don't have to do that fight, and I don't have to make that decision. I can avoid making that decision, hopefully, by kind of having good policies. Number 21, never stray from the way. I mean, this sounds like something Jesus would say. There's different spirits, there's different aims, and so you might be aiming at something different than I am, or what Jesus was, or so everybody might be aiming at different things, or maybe there's large groups of people aiming at the same thing, but there is a way, and if you stray from it, then you might get lost, you might die, you might become distracted. So this is related to trying to accomplish the goal. And have a relationship with the spirit of the thing itself, which for Miyamoto Musashi was the path of aloneness, which I'm not a big fan of, but I respect a lot of the things that Miyamoto Musashi learned along the way. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to connect with me on my Discord server. I will leave a link in the description below. Have a good one. Gavin Palmer, Hero Looking for Group.